Hey guys, this is the third episode of the YouTube series on Diablo 2, and this one is going to be focused on items and itemization and magic finding, item finding. So let's get the basics out of the way. There are a lot of different types of items in Diablo 2. Items are anything that you can pick up and use on your character, such as weapons, charms, quest items. Anyway, I'll go through all of them real quick. So the first type of items are quest items. Those are items that are related specifically to the quests that you have in your quest log and any of your various characters. We can go maybe find one here. Let's do the quest here for the Herodic Malice, and that can be a good... Oh, here it is. So this is the Smith quest I'm working on right now. I have never done this on my sorceress. I don't know why. But here is the Herodic Malice. This is a good example of a quest item here. So this is for tools of the trade. So this is a quest item. You'll be able to tell. I guess it doesn't say quest item, but you know it's specifically for a quest. I have to return this to Charcy. Okay, now I returned it. It's disappeared. So that's the basics of quest items. The only really important things you need to know about quest items is there's a couple quest items. One being the Callum's Will from Act 3, and one being the... What is the quest item from Act 4? The Hellfire Hammer. Those are both able to be wielded by any character at any level, and they do a reasonable amount of damage for really low levels, like for level 1. So sometimes it's worth saving that item and throwing it onto another character, a mule if you play online, or on single player. If you use the pluggy mod, throw it in your shared stash. And it's a good item to use for your low level characters. It hits like something you would get when you're level 15 to 20, and you can use it on level 1 character. So that's just kind of a quick way to level up using that. So let's move on. Quest items are pretty basic. I think most people that play games can get the picture with those. The next items we'll talk about are consumables. There's a few different types of consumables in Diablo 2. Potions being the most normal consumable. You use them and it makes your health go up or your mana go up, or in the case of rejuvenation potions, both. Also, you have scrolls, which is like these scrolls of Town Portal, which you can keep in a book. So you'd right-click to use those, or you can set a skill to do it, but that opens a portal, and you notice that consumed one scroll. Same thing with scrolls of Identify, which you can take a unidentified item. Let's go get an item real quick, and I'll show you how that works. Here's another example of a consumable. That'll be perfect. I'll show you that in 1 second here. Give me a item that we can use. There we go. Okay. Actually, this will be a great example. I can grab a few different ones here. There's that, and there's that. Perfect. All right. So, this next item, Oil Potion, these are throwing potions. Pretty useless. People don't end up really using these very often. But you can equip them, you can use throw, and it does some damage. These are obviously garbage in hell. You'd really only use these in normal. Then you have... Let's see. Then you have... Identify scrolls, like we were talking about. And they're consumable. They can go in a book as well. I just don't keep them, because Deckard Cain does the same thing. But you use it, right-click a scroll, and then you can identify item and see what actual modifiers are on the items. So that's how you see when they're unidentified. You can't use them. They don't show any of the modifiers on them, and that's kind of it. You don't get any basic information. So you need to identify them to know whether they're worth keeping or not. Also, their sell value changes once you identify them. Then you've got a few different types of items. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Alright, so the next few types of items are equipable items, so or wearables, which include armor, like any of these types of armors, um, weapons, such as this flail here, or a wand, or these swords, and then jewelry, which goes in this slot here. Doesn't usually give armor, but it just usually gives stats. Doesn't do any damage, doesn't have durability. All the rest of these items, the wearable ones, have durability, so if you get damaged, the items can break and you need to repair them. There's also those items I think I touched on in basics that are ethereal, which once they break, they're gone. You cannot repair ethereal items. But if they're a weapon, they do 50% more base damage, and if they're armor, they have 50% more base armor on them. Now there's a few ways that ethereal items actually can repair, but they have to have either a modifier on it that says indestructible, which makes it so it doesn't break, or a modifier that does repairs a certain durability every so many seconds. So let me find, I might have something that has that mod. So this one, for example, it has the indestructible mod. So even though it's ethereal, you notice there's no durability on it. Scolder's Ire, here we go. So you see it's got this modifier underneath that says repairs 1 durability in 5 seconds. That actually applies even to ethereal items. So if you get an ethereal version of this, it has 50% more base defense. So it would be something like, this one would have something like close to 1,000 defense, or maybe more. And it would actually have a lower strength requirement. That's actually something I forgot to mention with the ethereal items. If you can get this modifier, repairs 1 durability in 5 seconds, or whatever, however many seconds, it is an amazing mod for any types of weapon or armor. It makes it usable on your character rather than just on a mercenary. Next we have socketables, which I'm going to refer to socketables as the items that you put into socketed items. So socketables can be gems, which are like this, and you can get different, there's 5 different qualities of gems: chipped, flawed, regular, flawless, like this, and perfect. And as you go up the scale of it, they give more stats depending on how high, but they have a higher level requirement. You can also get runes, which are similar to gems, where they give a certain, certain stats depending on what you socket it into. That's like this one. If you put it in weapons, it gives 9 to minimum damage. If you put it into armors, helmets, or shields, it gives damage reduced by 7. So as you can see, there's no gloves, boots, belts, any of that. The only items that can be socketed, that have sockets, are weapons, body armors, shields, and helmets. That's it. So you're really kind of stuck to those 4 things. The last thing that can be inserted into a socket is a jewel. And this is a jewel, and these are unidentified when you find them. You can have them in all the normal qualities other than set. So magic, rare, and unique. And they have different modifiers, and those modifiers apply into whatever you put them into. And these are not, it doesn't matter what you put these into. It's going to have the same modifiers that's on it, regardless of whether it's a weapon or armor. So those are socketable items. Now, as far as the runes go, there are things called rune words. So that's what makes runes so unique. So for example, this is a rune word here. So by putting certain runes in a item with the correct amount of sockets and the correct type of item, they can actually create unique items with more modifiers than they would have on the runes alone. So let's do this one. This is the easiest way to show it. So let me pull up a set of runes so you can see what the actual runes do on their own. 1 second here. Here we go. So let's get a Tal, a Thul, an Ort, and an Am rune. So this rune word, Spirit, is used when you put Tal, Thul, Orton, Am into a shield in that order. Must be in that order, and it must be in a gray or a white item, not a magic item. It has to be a plain socketed item. So if you were to look at the runes individually, for shields, Tal rune gives 35 poison resist, a Thul rune gives 35 cold resist, a Ort rune gives 35 lightning resist, and an Am rune gives attacker takes damage of 14. So that's only 4 different modifiers, but you notice those 4 modifiers are in there. Cold resist 35, lightning resist 35, poison resist 35, and the attacker takes damage of 14. But also you get 2 to all skills. I think it's 25 to 35 faster cast rate. That varies depending on the how good this item rolls. You get faster hit recovery, defense versus missile, vitality, mana, and magic absorb. So you get a whole slew of other things because you put those in the right order. Now there's you can look up online, there's lists that list all the different rune words that there are in the game. So that's something you just have to kind of do your research and figure out what goes where. But rune words are extremely powerful, and some of the best items in the game, if not arguably the best items of the game, are rune words. So there also are the spirit rune word actually uses fairly easy to come by runes. And then there's some like this call to arms or enigma, heart of the oak. You've probably heard of some of those items. Are usually using what's called high runes, which are the highest of the runes, and they're very, very rare and very expensive generally if you're playing online. So those ones are a lot harder to come by and a lot more desirable usually. So let's go into that's enough about runes. At least you should understand runes now, the basics, and we'll talk about charms now. So let me get there. So as far as charms go, there's 3 types of charms. There's grand charms, which take up 3 spaces, large charms, which take up 2 spaces, and small charms, which take up 1 space in your inventory. So charms you just keep in your inventory, and they grant passive stats to your character. For example, this grand charm gives me 1 to cold skills for sorceress. So that adds 1 to all of my cold skills in the cold skill tree for my sorceress. Pretty powerful charm. Some of these can give a magic find chance, which I'll talk about a little bit, or they can give all resistances, stats, individual resistances. You can get some of these really rare ones and unique ones that you get off special events. We can talk about that in another episode. But some really powerful charms. So charms can be some of the most useful things in the game, and it's also kind of there so that you can just keep stuff in your inventory that passively boosts your character. The cool thing about these is they're not required for any specific character. The only ones that are, I think, are these Hellfire Torches, which are not, you could use them on any character, but they vary on which, this only gives 3 to sorceress skills, so if you used it on a druid, you wouldn't get any skills, you'd just get the rest of it. But they're very useful for any character to use. Almost every character benefits from having charms. So the matter of stacking as many charms as you possibly can. I usually don't fill my full inventory on an MF character because I want room to pick up items. But on PvPers and min-maxing characters, you're definitely going to want this entire area full. That's also why I don't carry a scroll of or identity scroll book. It just takes up more room in my inventory, and I can talk to Deckard Cain right here to identify my items if I do want to do that. So that's the gist of charms and how those work. There are no rare or set charms, just magic charms and those unique charms that drop. So now that we kind of talked about all those things, let's talk about the different item qualities. I know I kind of touched on it. There's a few different item qualities. There's white items, which come in a few different varieties actually. You can have standard white items. You can have a damaged or low quality or cracked version of a white item, which basically has slightly worse stats, slightly worse durability, or slightly less armor. They're just definitely worse quality. You can also have superior versions of white items, which usually have either on weapons, it can have increased or enhanced damage up to 15%, or it can have increased attack rating. And for armor, you can have up to 15% enhanced defense, so they have more defense, or increased maximum durability, so they just are a little, you can use them a little longer before they break, which is not that useful. One thing to note, if you're making a rune word or something out of an item that's a superior quality, it will work. But if you use the armor that's superior and it has the increased durability, it'll also actually increase the cost of repairing the item. So that's something to think about. The enhanced defense, I don't think that affects it, might or might not, but I do know definitely that the enhanced maximum durability definitely makes it more expensive to repair. So keep that in mind if you're making a rune word in it. Putting the rune word in and making it a much higher quality item definitely increases the repair cost, but having that extra mod will increase that even more. So just be aware of that. So the next type of items we can talk about are socketed items. Gray socketed items like this, which are just a standard white item, but it's got sockets in it. You can also have like unique items that also have sockets, or magic items or rare items that have sockets. Now the only difference between a gray item with sockets and a rare item or unique or magic item with sockets is that rune words cannot be built into magic, rare, or unique items or set items with sockets. They can only be built into them in white items. So you need to make sure if you're going to go for a rune word that it's a plain item at the start. I've seen a lot of people waste runes into something that truly wasn't a white or gray item. So just keep aware of that when you do. After socketed items, we've got magic and rare items. So these are the bulk of the items that you will find in Diablo 2. So let's talk about these for a minute. So first, magic and rare items have things called affixes. Affixes are broken into prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes are something that comes on the first part of the item, like for this item is a kris, which is a type of dagger. And this one specifically is a ferocious kris. Ferocious being on the first part of the affix, which is a prefix, the part that comes before pre, and that gives us that enhanced damage modifier. So ferocious means that it has between 150 to 200% enhanced damage, or something like that. I don't know the actual numbers, but if you look online on the Ariat Summit website, it should break down all the affixes, prefixes, and suffixes. So normal magic items can only have a prefix and a suffix. So they're limited to basically 2 modifiers. The only other types of items that can have more than 2 modifiers are items with something called staff mods, but I'll explain that a little bit later. But in general, you can have a prefix and a suffix on different items. So let's look just for here, for example. So this one has a suffix. It's the Great Axe of Excellence. So of Excellence is the suffix, and that suffix adds 5 to minimum damage. See if we can find a one with 2. So here we go. Here's an affix, or a prefix and a suffix. So this has the cruel modifier, which is really high enhanced damage, 286%, and then the of quality suffix, which gives us 2 to maximum damage. So that's a prefix and a suffix on a magical item, which is the most you can have for magical. Now for rare items, it's a little bit different. Rare items, I believe, can have like 3 to 6 or 7, something like that, different modifiers on them. So they can have a more amount, and I think it depends on the difficulty and that kind of thing, the item level. It depends on how many you get. But so let's identify this rare item here, and we can see. So we've got a few modifiers. In this instance, the 1 to Blizzard is a staff mod, so that part is something that can randomly roll on a sorceress orb, regardless of whether it's rare or just white or anything. So that one's not part of the affixes. But the 2 to sorceress skills is a prefix, I believe. I'm not sure which ones all of these are. But then there's a bunch of different affixes. You've got the fire damage, cold damage, increased mana, magic damage reduced, and charges of teleport. So those are all different affixes that can spawn on maybe a magic item individually, but having more of these together is what makes a rare item rare. And so rare items are always going to be in that yellow text. And this one just happens to have one staff mod of a +1 to Blizzard. So staff mods are things that spawn on certain items like these scepters and wands and sorceress orbs. On druid pelt helmets and barbarian helmets they spawn. Paladin shields. There's a lot of different places these spawn on. So these are, you can have up to 3 staff mods per item. And so let's see if we can find one with a little bit more on it. Let's see. No, these are all kind of basic ones. Okay, here's one with 2. Yeah, let's look at that one. That's got 2 to Poison Nova and 1 to Blood Golem. So if you notice, neither of those is and the name of this magic item is Bone 1 of Poison Nova. So that Poison Nova refers to the level 2 Poison Nova charges on the bottom. That's what that one's talking about. Those staff mods could have been on a white one. So those are things just to look out for. You can even find white ones or white items with staff mods on them that you can put rune words into. So be aware of that. So that's what a staff mod is. So there is rare items and magic items in a nutshell. There's tons more you can read about. Check up on the Ariat Summit. It explains all that really well. The next type of item we'll talk about are set items. So I've got a gigantic list of a bunch of sets that I'm starting up. So let's work through those real quick. What's a good set to start with? Okay. So let's go with the Berserker set. It's a pretty basic set. Put these here for a minute. So, take off a few items here so you can see how this works. So I've got 3 different items in a set. How these work are, they individually have modifiers or affixes. Like this axe has 30 bonus attack rating, 5% mana stolen per hit. So that's how that item works if I were to use it by itself. Now, if I attach another item to it, if you notice, now this other green modifier came underneath it that says 50% enhanced damage. So now this axe, because it's paired with another item in the set, gets 50% enhanced damage. Also, this armor only had the first 2 modifiers. Now this next green modifier plus 230 or 73 defense based on character level, that's also added as a set bonus for having 2 pieces of the set. The golden 50 to life on the bottom, that's something that the overall set gives. It doesn't give 50 to life here and 50 to life here, just for the whole set. So when we add the third item, the headpiece, now if you notice all those gold text ones below, not only does it give 50 to life, it gives 75 defense, 5 to 9 poison damage over 3 seconds, and poison length reduced by 75. That's for having the complete set. But each individual item has that green enhanced extra modifier. The helmet gets an extra 728 attack rating based on character level. So that's how you get combining different set items together. Sometimes you might want only a few pieces of the set. Some sets have more than 3 pieces. They have like 6 pieces maybe, I think is the biggest one. And they add different abilities and different partial set bonuses based on how many pieces you have together and which pieces are matched together. So that's something, again, you can go on the Ariat Summit, you can research all the sets and how they go together, but that's set items in a nutshell. You can get duplicates of set items in a game, so I potentially could kill 1 monster and 2 of these same set axes could drop, or 2 of the armors. It doesn't happen that often, but I have seen them drop not only off the same monster, but in the same game. So that does happen. Now, the last type of item, I guess there's 2 more items, but one of the last types of main item that you'll find is called a unique item. Unique items are the backbone of Diablo 2 and what makes the game extremely fun, at least in my opinion. Unique items are items like this, the Oculus Swirling Crystal, or Skin of the Viper Magi Serpent Skin Armor, or Chance Guard Chain Gloves. So all of these items are unique. What that means is, 1, a lot of the times, not all the times, but a lot of the times, unique items will have a different picture of the, the actual thumbnail of the item is actually a different image. Like this, for example, doesn't look like the normal helm does. It's got a cool, image on there. But that's not the important part that we're looking for. The reason it's actually called a unique item isn't because it's unique by itself. What it means is once that particular unique item has dropped in a game you've made, it can no longer drop again in that specific game. So if you save and exit and create a new game, that can drop again, even if you're wearing it and using it. But once it's dropped in that one specific game, it will not drop in that particular instance that you have open. So these items always have the same stats on them, unique items, for the most part. The things that do change on unique items is how the specific modifiers roll. So for example, these Chance Guard chain gloves have a 38% better chance of getting magic items. That can roll, I believe, between like 20% and 40%. So these are a fairly high rolled item as far as the magic find goes. But a lot of these different items can have a variable stat or multiple variable stats. This Bulcatho's wedding band, this thing is all the same on all the stats except the percentage life leech. The low items for these get 3% life leech. You can get an average roll, which is 4% life leech, and a perfect roll, which is this, is a 5% life leech ring. So that's the basics of how these items tend to work and how unique items work. So the only things that are different on these unique items are what amount or the variation of how much of a certain attribute changes, like this all resistances or magic find or any of this kind of stuff. So when a unique item drops, if you know which unique item that is, it's always going to be, if I find a unique serpent skin armor that's unidentified, it's always going to be a skin of the Viper Magi. Now how much defense it has, how much all resistances it has, actually I think maybe Viper Magi always has the same defense. I can't remember, but it'll vary on the magic damage reduced by, on the resists, all that kind of stuff. So you need to pay attention to that mostly. I think that covers unique items pretty well. I'm going to talk about crafted items now and the Heraldric cubes. So there are items that you can craft in the game, and it starts with this Heraldric cube here. So let's talk about the Heraldric cube for a second. I'm going to toss some of these. I just put them in here, I guess. So let's start with the Heraldric cube. And let's find some items. So the Heraldric cube, more than just making items for quests, which is you use this cube in Act 2 to combine the pieces of the Heraldric staff. Spoiler if you've never played this game, but I figured most people should know at least that. But you combine items and make those. The other things the cube can do is actually upgrade gems. So if I take 3 gems of the same quality, like 3 of these flawless gems, put them in the cube, I can turn 3 of the lower quality into one of the higher quality, which is a perfect. So that's the max quality now for these. You can do the same thing with 3 chip gems. There's also some recipes to upgrade potions, I believe, to make rejuvenation potions, things like that. So that's possible. The other thing that you can do with the cube is upgrade runes, and it's a similar idea. 3-to-1 until you get up to, I believe it's like a pull rune or something. Maybe it's rune, I can't remember. But 3 of those runes together in the cube, and I think it's a gem for those ones as well, like a chip gem. But you can look up the recipes on the Ariat Summit. You can use those to combine for the next higher rune. So there's an order of the runes and how common they are to drop. So as you gather runes, you can combine certain runes in the cube to get the next tier of rune on that level. So that's something people do, is collect a bunch of runes so they can upgrade and find, create runes that they don't actually still have. So that's first things you can do with the cube. There's also ways, if you get magic items like these, say charms for example, is a good one that people like to do. You can take 3 perfect gems, throw them in the cube with the charm, and that will re-roll the charm affixes. So if I got one that was just a garbage charm, but it was found off a high level area, like off Diablo or Bale or one of those that can have the best charms, you can continuously add 3 gems to the cube and keep re-rolling that charm until you get some good affixes on it. Note that you will waste those 3 gems every time until, and that only gives you 1 reroll, so every 3 gems for each time. But it's a good way to spend your gems later and have a potential chance to get really good charms. That's usually where people use them. There's a few other ways to do it. Also, you can take 3 skulls, perfect skulls, and put them into the Haraji cube and reroll rare items in that same way. Rare items is not that useful to do it with, but most people use it to roll diadems because they don't lose their item level, which kind of controls how high of those affixes are on the um, rare item. So if it'll keep those high level affixes, and you can continuously use those skulls to re-roll the stats on that rare item. Basically creates a new rare item of the same type. So that's what you can do with the cube first. Then you can actually craft items as well. So let's go to, let me see, I've got some amulets somewhere here I can show you that I've created. So, and we can look at the, no, those aren't the amulets. We can look at the the recipes for all these crafting on the Ariat Summit website again. But I can make what's called caster amulets. That's the most common thing people make. So I've crafted these amulets. It's in this kind of orange writing. And you use like a gem, a rune, a jewel, and an amulet together, and you combine them in there. Now, if you want to make sure and do your research on crafting, I can maybe do a whole episode on crafting, but you want to have a high level character first to do it. And that ensures that the best modifiers on the amulet come about. That's about all I'm going to talk about in regards to crafting though. So that gives you a basic idea of how items work in Diablo 2. And I know I was going to talk about magic find and how that works, but I think the episode's getting a little bit long, so we're going to go ahead and make this a 2-parter. And so we will have the next episode, which is item hunting, rune finding, magic find, and how to balance that with a character and create a magic finding build. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you in the next episode, which hopefully will be coming out pretty quick after this one. Thanks.